Welcome, sisters and brothers, to another episode of WDRS Talk, the Wolf's Den radio show talk. And I am your host, Wolf Hemara. Thank you very much for joining me for another episode of this podcast of mine. I really appreciate you listening. If you have been listening to the episode so far, I really appreciate your support. And please, subscribe to the YouTube page and also give a follow on the Wolf's Den Radio Show Talk page on Spotify. And you can also check WDRS Talk on Anchor. Anchor is the free um, podcast platform that I'm doing this on. And it's totally free and it's really cool. If you want to start your own podcast and talk about shit, go to Anchor and they'll hook you up and they'll put your podcast on Spotify and I think also on Apple iTunes and all these other great platforms. So check them out, Anchor FM, the app. All right, so this is going to be episode 8 and it's going to be part 2 of Stories from the Road. And I started Stories from the Road actually back in the day, literally back in the day of the Wolfgang days in the mid 1990s. I started a Wolfgang had a fan club, but I started a newsletter for the fan club, and I got inspiration from the Black Crows fan club that I joined back in 1996. And they sent me a newsletter that came out every 3 months or every 2 months that, just told me everything about the band, pictures, stories, and whatnot. So I did the same thing with Wolfgang. And if you were a fan club member back in the day, you would have gotten issues of the Wolves Gangs Bands Gangs, the Wolves Bands Gangs. I'm not sure. I don't even remember the Wolves Gangs Bands Gangs. There you go. And that was the newsletter as well. And one of the articles in that newsletter was Stories from the Road. I used to write these stories down as articles, and now I'm doing it on the podcast. So here we go, part 2 of Stories from the Road, WDRS Talk, episode 8. This story happens back in 1995. And it happens in a town called Naga City in the eastern province of Camarines Sur. And this was, I think the first album had come out already. And this was, I think, the first really um out of town gig that Wolfgang would have. And if you're not from the Philippines, it's about a 13-hour bus ride during those times. Of course, you could ride the plane, but that was the first. No, the promoters could not afford to let the band hop on a train. I mean, hop on a plane and go there. So we had to take the bus, and it was us, 4 of us, and I think we had 3 roadies. There was Dick. I remember we had Glenn, and we had the late great Dino Barton, rest in peace. They were with us, and so all in all, I think we were 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people. So we take the long bus ride from Manila to Naga City. I think we did an overnight ride, an overnight trip on the bus. It was okay. Air conditioning at least. um, as comfortable as a bus ride can be. And it was very far. This place is so far from Manila, man, by land. And there was just some parts of it that was just we were just on the road alone, no other cars, and it was just like tall, um, as Filipinos call talahib, just tall grass, and for miles and miles and miles, it was just that, and there was no one around. It was so desolate, and so finally we get to Naga, and we actually see Mayon volcano, and very cool, man. It's the first time I saw Mayon volcano, the perfect cone in all of the world, one of the wonders of the world. And so we get there, and what I remember is we get to the hotel, and I remember the hotel had a lot of sand on the floor. I'm not sure if it was beach sand or sand, but it was just sand on the floor. And you know that feeling you get when you're wearing flip-flops or slippers and you're walking on sand on the floor, not on the beach but on the floor. It feels weird, right? So that's what I remember from the hotel. And then I remember also because Wolfgang, uh, we all like to eat. You know, if you compared us to Razorback, who was our brother band back in that those times. Very polar opposites. The guys in Razorback, they like to drink. You know, they like the juice. They have fun times with the juice. They like playing while drinking, which is fun. But Wolfgang, we like to eat. We like the food. The roadies are just, oh my god, just we just like to eat. And it we made it a point to wherever we went for an out of town show, because in the Philippines every province they have their own signature food and dishes, and we made it a point to have in our technical writer and also the band writer, the artist writer, that we would take advantage of the places that we were playing at and eat their local delicacies. So since we were in the Bicol region, we had to have Bicol Express, and we had to have laing, which is one of my favorite foods. And right away it's like, oh, we gotta eat the local food, man. And we had it delivered to the hotel rooms. And I remember that Basti was not very adventurous with food at the time, and I'm not sure if he ever is, if he ever did become adventurous with food, especially local food. But when he took one look at the Laing and the Bicol Express, and he was just like, "Ugh, what's that?" And I'm like, I actually got offended, and I'm like, dude, that's Bicol Express, that's Laing, that's like one of the best tasting foods that I've ever tasted, and it's based with coconut milk, and which gives it just an awesome flavor. And I don't know, Basti was not having it. He was not open minded enough during those times to even taste it. So I'm like, dude, you gotta at least taste it. So if you don't like it, then you don't like it. But he didn't want to. He wanted McDonald's. So there we go. So he had his quarter pounder with cheese and fries and a Coke, and while everyone else enjoyed the local delicacies. So I don't know if he's more adventurous now with his palate, but hopefully he is. Anyway, moving on. So next up, I'm not sure if we actually played that night. No, I think we played the next night because we got to Naga City at night already. It was early evening, and yeah, and those local dishes were for our dinner. So the next day, I'm not sure. I don't really remember what we did during the day. We probably did a couple of radio um, on air interviews to promote the show. And what else do we probably had, Bicol food requested for every meal. That's for sure, but I don't remember exactly. I do remember the show itself. So let's move forward. Let's fast forward to the show, and we get to the venue, and it is the town plaza. Okay, it is, I think, the Peña Francia Festival, which is an annual festival that is held in that city. I'm not sure. Please correct me if I'm wrong, and I will stand corrected. But I think that the festival was the Peña Francia Festival, and we were there Saturday night. So we get there. Okay, right now, while I'm telling you this story, I can actually start to remember going into the plaza. As usual, the plaza's filled with people. Back in they have the stage, the big grandstand that local plazas have in the Philippines, and that's where we were gonna perform. And as usual, in the back, you have all the food stalls, where you can drink and eat, and as you move forward towards the stage, you have the audience was there. There was a lot of people. Of course, they were there Saturday night. They were ready to party for their festival, for their fiesta. And so we go to the back. We get down there. We go to the back. And then I don't know if there were any opening acts at all, but we get there. And then it is time for us to play. Our roadies set up our equipment or whatever equipment was provided for us. And we get out, and um, we start to play, and everyone's just like, yeah, everyone starts going wild. Um, and then by by the second song, people start to climb up on the stage, on the grandstand. It's not actually a stage. It's actually the grandstand made of concrete. And they start climbing up on the stage, and they start dancing, doing a dance, trying to be Mr. Big Shot. And I remember the promoter started. Okay, so not yet. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So people start going up. They dance for about a couple of seconds, and then they jump down. And then another guy stands up and goes up on the stage and starts dancing, and then jumps down into the crowd again when security starts to go towards them, to throw them out. And then out of nowhere, everybody, all of these people start going up on the stage. It's either maybe because the people in the back were starting to surge forward. Maybe they were getting crushed in the front. I don't know, but everybody in the front just started climbing up on the stage. Some of them would dance and then not jump down anymore. So some of our roadies, I remember Dino Barton, who was always our head of security, he started tossing people. He started tossing people off the stage, and but more and more people would come up, and they were like, fuck you, this is our town. We do what we want, and we want to dance. So people started, more people start going up. And I remember this, and this is while the band is playing, okay? This is while the band is playing loud, fast rock music. And then I remember, in my mind's eye, I'll never forget it, the promoter, he's right in front of Basti, on the edge of the stage on the front. He's holding some guy, some kid in the front row, and I see his fist just go up and cock, and just pull the trigger and just start smashing this kid. And I'm like, oh my God. And mayhem starts to ensue. More people go up the stage. And finally, I don't know who said, just let them come in, just let them come up. They're not hurting anybody. Just let them come up, because there are too many. So behind the drum set, there, since it's a grandstand, there are steps to a, I guess, a higher stage. It's a grandstand, so there are different levels. So people start sitting down on those steps on the stage behind the band. So right now, I'm looking behind me. There's like 50 to 100 people behind me, just sitting down, rocking out, listening to the band, but on the stage behind the drums. And there was no security whatsoever. I mean, after every song, some kid would like tap my shoulder, and he'd be sitting right there next to me. He'd be like, asking for a drumstick. It's like, pare, paying drumstick. I'm like, I can't give you, no, man. You can't have a drumstick. These are expensive. Yeah. But, that's how crazy it was. There were people sitting down beside me, both sides. And we just played and played. But by the fifth song, and you have to remember that people were not stopping. They kept on coming up on the stage. People were just climbing up on the stage, and it's a good thing that the stage wasn't made of wood or scaffolding or whatever. But it was an actual concrete grandstand, so there was no imminent danger of the stage collapsing from the weight. But there was just too many people. So by the fifth song, we had to stop. We had to stop playing. The promoters were like, "You gotta stop because we can't we can't stop the people from coming up on the stage. You might get hurt. Some asshole might hurt Basti or whatever. I don't know." So they had to stop the show, and we were taken to the which is the back room, the stock room of the grandstand. And it was just tiny stock room where you put mops and cleaning supplies and whatever. This was not a high tech grandstand. This was like 1970s or even 1960s or even from the fucking 50s, man. This was an old grandstand in an old province in the Philippines. So it wasn't it wasn't backstage at the at Madison Square Garden. It was a small supply room, and we were there, dude. We were there, the four guys in the band, and we were just looking at each other, like, "Oh my god, what the fuck is happening out there?" And the people they're just partying. They're just there. It's like, well, we're up here on the stage, we'll party, and we never went back to play. The roadies were like coming in every now and then. It's like, "We're not playing anymore. You guys are done." They can't they can't they can't they're trying to ask people to get off the stage, but there's no space. So we're stopping the show, and we're gonna pack up. We're gonna pack up the cymbals and the guitars, and we're gonna get out of here. Okay, so we do that. I don't remember what happened after the show. Probably went back to the hotel and just it just like, wow, what was that? And but that is not the end. There is more to come the next day. So fast forward to Sunday, and it was time to go home, go back to Manila with a riding a bus, a transport bus again. And so I think we leave after lunch. We have our last meal there at lunchtime, and then we leave probably, I would say, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. An air conditioned bus back to Manila. Another Oh no, I'm sorry. It wasn't a 13-hour trip to begin with. It was an 8-hour trip from Metro Manila to Naga. So we were expecting another 8-hour trip going back home. Okay. And I think an hour or two into it, the bus breaks down. And we're like, oh shit. And we're in the middle of nowhere. This is the middle of nowhere. There's no other cars, it's just the bus. So we had to stop, and the driver gets down. And after a while, I'm not sure. I don't remember if it was a flat tire or if the engine just died. But I'm leaning towards what that the engine died because there was no way that we were continuing on that same bus. So the driver has to call somebody, and I don't. Oh, okay. Yes, there were cell phones already by that time. Thank God. If there were no cell phones, holy shit. But anyway, there was a cell phone, so I think he called home base, and they sent another bus to pick us up. And mind you, we were not the only passengers there. We weren't a lot of passengers, but the band and roadies were not the only ones there. There were other people there, and so then the next bus arrives, but this time there's no air conditioning. So we're like, fuck, no aircon, no goddamn aircon. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is the second bus. There was aircon. Sorry about that. Aircon, and then that bus fucking broke down too. So we had two buses that broke down, and the third bus that they got had no air conditioning. And, and it was by this time it was already nighttime. No more sunlight. The sun had set, and we were all just fuck it. We just want to go home. We were all fucking. We were tired. We were just pissed and of course we had a weird gig the night before. So this trip was just getting worse and worse and worse. And we were like, okay, this bus seems to run well because it was going top speed, as top speed as a bus can get. No air conditioning, and we were just trying the best we could. And that trip, that whole trip from Naga, with the two buses breaking down, we finally reached the end of the not the end of the journey, but the end of the line of the bus, which is Robinson's Galleria in Metro Manila, in Ortigas. And when we got down, we checked the time, and it was 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. So that trip, with the two buses breaking down, it all added up to 12 hours. A 12-hour ordeal. And we weren't home yet. We were still in Galleria. So the guys from the south, who were Basti, everybody, Basti, Mon, the roadies, they all lived down in the south of Manila, while I lived near Galleria, so I just took a cab and got home really quick. But the rest of the guys, they had to do another 45-minute to an hour trip from Galleria to BF Homes and Alabang, Ayala Alabang. And that was it. It was a 12-hour ordeal on the road, a weird ass gig the night before, and we got home. And now I'm telling you the story. So that's what happened. with Wolfgang back in 1995 in Naga City. Thanks. I'll see you next week, folks.